Good afternoon. We're here today to talk about the Jobs Plus Notice of Funding Availability, and I'm very happy that you're out there. This is an exciting program. We're excited about the program, and our partner, Department of Labor, is also excited about this program. So today's NOFA webcast includes Jen Troke from Department of Labor. She's with the Employment Training Administration. Yes. And of course, we have Anisi Chenault, who is our FSS Jobs Plus everything person, who's going to talk about this NOFA. I first of all want to tell you that this is really a collaboration. It's a collaboration between two federal agencies, Department of Labor and HUD. It's also a collaboration within HUD that the Office of Public Housing Investments is working with the Office of Policy Development to work on the NOFA and eventually to implement the program. So for those of you who are not familiar with Jobs Plus, 16 years ago, MDRC, Rockefeller Foundation, HUD, and a number of other partners had a demonstration program. And the demonstration program focused on work. And what it was there were two developments, and there were 6 housing authorities in this program. And one of the developments was a development where rent incentives, financial incentives, concentration on work, job developers, and a community support for work took place in that development. And the other development was one where business went on as usual. And after about 5 or 6 years, they evaluated the program, and they found out that this development, the one with the financial incentives and the job developers and the community support for work, that actually people within that development worked more. So Congress took this idea, and Congress put money into the budget this year for HUD to have a Jobs Plus program. So the NOFA went out on the street, and this is the webcast to talk a little more in depth about the program, the ideas behind the program, the scoring categories, and to talk about the whole program itself. This is going to be archived so that people can look at it whenever they have that opportunity. So with that in mind, I want to talk a little bit about this webcast. Usually when we do a webcast, we go into the minutia, if you will. We talk about the forms. We talk about the DUNS number. We talk about grants.gov. We are not going to do that today. Please read the general section. You're on your own for that. And this webcast will be about the Jobs Plus NOFA. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Anisi Chenault, who's going to talk about the due date and the criteria for eligibility.
Right. Great. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. And just wanted to say thanks again to our partners at the Office of Policy, Program, and Legislative Initiatives, who have been not only instrumental but critical for getting this NOFA onto the street. And they are really working with us kind of through the competition process. So just thank you again to them. So I also want to mention that if you have questions about anything that we go over in the webcast, if you have questions about the NOFA that you haven't already submitted, please feel free to send them now or at any time during the presentation to jobsplus@hud.gov. Capitalization doesn't really matter, just jobs plus one word at hud.gov. And we have somebody who's monitoring that email box and will be giving us your questions at the end of the presentation. But feel free to send in anything as you come to it. So, okay, the due date. The application is due on December 17th. So write that in your calendar, write that in stone in your calendar, and then actually back it up about 3 days. We have gotten a whole lot better with the whole grants.gov system and so the submissions, and I'm sure many of you remember years ago when we had lots of problems, but I still really, really encourage applicants to send your applications in at least a couple of days early, just in case anything happens. Then you'll have time to fix it. So back that up. Plus, I know most of you will want to be gone for the holidays. So if you get it in early, then you're done and you're all set. The other major thing that I was on the last slide, but I wanted to mention, is that there has been a technical correction. And this webcast will talk about things that are in the technical correction. It was actually posted both to grants.gov and to the HUD Funds Available webpage about 2 hours ago. So you can go to either one of those places. If you signed up at grants.gov when you downloaded the application materials to get notifications, you should have already gotten a notification. I went and did that too, and I got my notification, so that's how I knew it was definitely out there. So please go ahead and look at that. The major thing in the technical correction is about eligibility, and we'll get to that, but that's the big thing. Actually, that's the next thing we're going to talk about. So there are 3 major pieces for eligibility. And I know there's been a lot of questions about who's eligible and why. What we're trying to do here is actually replicate as much as we can, replicate the demo, because the demo was shown to be effective. However, as Ron mentioned, that was 16 years ago, and a lot has changed. A lot has changed about the makeup of our public housing communities. A lot has changed about TANF. At that time, it was AFDC. It was pre-welfare reform, so that's changed a lot. And also HUD has completely changed how we track and manage our physical properties. So now we have asset management, which was not in place 16 years ago. So we've got some changes, and we're doing our best to replicate the original demo. That's one of the reasons why the size, which is the first criteria for eligibility, is what it is. We're looking at PHAs that have at least 250 units of non-elderly, or excluding elderly-only households, to be in the program. And that's because the community supports for work, that sort of leg of the stool of this model, is really kind of a unique and critical piece. And we don't know that we can get that sort of critical mass of having all of these folks looking for work and kind of moving towards self-sufficiency together in a smaller development. So I've gotten lots of questions about, we've got really high unemployment in our community. Can we apply? Why aren't we on the eligible list? And that's a major reason, is that we are looking for larger developments. So there is a possibility in the future we may look towards different sizes, but at least for this time, that's our size. So the next criteria for eligibility is unemployment, and that's at least 50% of the households, excluding elderly only, have no member showing earned income in PIC. And I'll get into more of that later. And then the last one is place, and this is where we get the critical mass of those 250 units together in one place, and I'll get into that as well. And then finally, and this one, it's kind of, I think a lot of people might have skimmed over this, but PHAs that are FAS troubled are not eligible to apply, and nor are PHAs that are on the FARS list. So if that applies to you, and that's as of the due date of the NOFA. So just be aware, again, it's a big grant and complicated program, and so we had to kind of draw that minimum line that FAS troubled PHAs are not eligible. Okay, so the specifics about size. HUD has already made this determination using PIC data, and so any PHA that's on the in Appendix B already has passed this eligibility criteria. We are looking at developments, and by developments, we're using what we used to call AMPs, asset management projects. For a while we called them projects, now we call them developments. So that's another one of the critical pieces. People say, well, what are you actually looking at? Well, in PIC, the only thing that we have to look at is by development, which is by AMP. And this is one of the major things that has changed in the technical correction, and I'll get into that. But we're looking at developments or combinations of contiguous developments that reach 250 units of not elderly only. So when we went into PIC, we actually pulled out all the elderly only units and then came up with that number. So that we did not make a distinction for people who are disabled. So if you're looking at your own PIC data, be sure to make that distinction. But also think if you have a development that has mostly folks who are disabled, and it is on the eligible list, just think about whether that might be a good site to do a Jobs Plus program, because we really are wanting people to move to work. And there are a lot of people with disabilities who can work and do work, so it definitely could be a great site, but just think about that as you're making your decisions. Also, the head of household status doesn't matter for this particular eligibility criteria. We're looking at all of the members of the household and wanting to make sure that there are people who can work somewhere in the household. So all that matters is someone under the age of 62 in the household. The next criteria for eligibility is unemployment. Again, for everybody who is on Appendix B, we already did this calculation. And this is that at least 50% of the households, excluding elderly-only households, have no member showing earned income in PIC. And that's very specific language, and we pulled it exactly that way for that reason to look at unemployment. In the demo, they looked at the percentage of people who were on AFDC, or welfare at the time. But because of welfare reform, as I'm sure you know, the percentage of folks that are on welfare in our developments has gone down drastically. So welfare recipients or TANF recipients are not actually a good proxy for looking at unemployment or poverty. So we're not using that anymore. Okay, so the next slide is that, as I've been talking about, all of the eligible developments are listed in Appendix B, or, and this is in the technical correction, combined developments that have undergone a request for review of eligibility and have been determined to be eligible. So in the technical correction, we, because we got a lot of questions about this, what we sort of hadn't accounted for was the fact that there are a lot of developments that are formerly AMPs or developments within PIC that don't actually represent a real development or community in the real world. So for instance, especially a lot of PHAs who've gone through Hope 6 or major redevelopment may have brought back their developments and AMPs in phases. And so they may have 6 developments or AMPs in our PIC system that actually make up one real actual neighborhood. So the technical correction allows for PHAs that are in that situation, or PHAs that might just have 2 smaller AMPs or developments that are next to each other, to basically send in a proposal to say, here are the developments that we would like to combine for purposes of eligibility. So when you do that, what we will do is take those 2 AMPs, and we ask you to send in the AMP number and name as it is in PIC, and we'll do the same analysis that we did for the whole universe, and then let you know, yes, this combination is eligible, or no, this combination is not eligible. So the developments must be contiguous, meaning next to each other. Parts of developments cannot be combined. It's just full developments, and we'll get into this later too, but everybody in the development must be offered services. And then once you send those in, we will do the analysis for the eligibility for size and for unemployment. And then the eligibility for place, which we'll get into, which involves the map, that actually will still be done upon your application. So that will be the same for everyone, that place eligibility criteria. So on your screen now in this slide is the language from the technical correction that explains how to do a request for the review of eligibility. And basically it's sending an email with the name and AMP or development number to jobsplus@hud.gov. We will then take a look at it and respond to you within 5 working days. And we will say at that point, yes, no, or we need more information. And then if we need more information, then when you get back to us, we will respond to that information. All initial requests for this review of eligibility must be received no later than 20 calendar days prior to the due date of the NOFA. So the due date is December 17th, so that would be right around Thanksgiving. I'm not exactly sure what the calendar day is. Because when the technical correction was published, we are not anticipating at this point a change in the due date. So we're still looking at December 17th for all applications to come in. So the next criteria for eligibility is place. And this one is kind of confusing. I've gotten a lot of questions on this. So hopefully the language in the technical correction will be helpful to help folks kind of understand what we are going for. And the reason why we have this one is because of the fact that we can only at HUD look at data on number of houses in a development or an AMP setting. But there are sites which we know that are scattered sites. And so some PHAs may have 300 units, but they may be across an entire city or an entire town. And that's not going to get us to that place-based critical mass to have the community supports for work really work. So what we did to address this was ask applicants to send in a map. And we want to see a map of your development. And on that map, we want to see, the requirement is that there are at least 250 eligible units within a quarter-mile radius. Now, some basic geometry, if you guys remember, back to junior high, a radius is from a point in the middle to the outside of a circle, which means that it's actually a half-mile diameter. And I've gotten a lot of folks asking questions about this, and when I say, no, we're talking about a half-mile diameter, the light bulbs go off. So hopefully that will help a little bit too. But so for this requirement, what we really want is for a map with a point in the center of the development or developments that have been deemed eligible, and then a circle with a half-mile radius around that point, and then an indication that there are at least 250 eligible units within that circle. So that's what we're going to be looking for to determine the place eligibility criteria. So hopefully that helps. If not, please feel free to send more questions. I also should have mentioned we're preparing an FAQ, and this information will also be in the FAQ as well. So just some other questions that have already come in is the development itself may be larger than that circle. So you may have a development that's this big, and the circle is in the middle of that development or developments that are contiguous, and that's fine. Everyone who's in those developments must be offered services, but the 250 is kind of your minimum for the critical mass to be determined eligible. So that's fine. Also, the circle may cross over the contiguous complexes that have been deemed eligible for size and unemployment. So, and in fact, I would expect that it would if you have contiguous developments that are together. Also wanted to mention, so we've talked about developments that are kind of scattered sites and everywhere. We also have some cases where you may have one development for asset management purposes that actually has two real complexes. And it's hard, I use these air quotes because we talk about things in using so many different words, but you may have Johnson homes and Kennedy homes that are actually, they're right next to each other, but for asset management purposes, the whole thing, Johnson homes and Kennedy homes, is one AMP or one development. That is okay. You can serve Johnson homes and Kennedy homes. And in those cases, the eligibility would already have been reviewed because they're within one development. And so in those cases, if that situation, if they're already on Appendix B, then they're already deemed eligible. You don't need to send in a request for eligibility. But we've had some questions about that as well. Okay. So
you're flipping it to Ron.
I'm flipping it to Ron.
Okay. So basically, the Jobs Plus model, we like to say it has 3 legs. And I talked about this a little bit earlier on, and we're going to go into each of the legs as this program goes on. The first is employment-related services, and Jen is going to talk to us about what those services could be. But in your mind, think about job training classes, resume writing, mock interviews, education, all the different parts that go into what a person needs to be employable. Financial incentives. The original Jobs Plus model had a lot of different financial incentives that different housing authorities could use. We actually have one, and it's the Earned Income Disregard, which we're going to talk about later. And then the third one is community support for work. And when you think about community support for work, in our minds we're thinking of how do you get a development that believes and works towards a lot of people in that development working. And it could be any number of things. It could be inviting people who used to live there back to talk about their experience in the workforce. It could be mothers picking up children of someone who works. It could be grandmothers involved. It could be any number of different things, but all with the same aim of community support for work. So you have to think about how it is that you are going to look in that development and develop a working mantra, if you will. So we're going to talk about that. I do want to talk about the next one, which is the population to be served. Jobs Plus services must be offered to everyone in the development. Some people in the development might turn you down. And that's everyone between the ages of 18 to 64 who are deemed to be employable, right? So it's not the elderly. We're not talking necessarily about the elderly, although some elderly might very well want to be in this mix. But those services have to be offered to everyone. But you may determine that, you know what, we're going to offer them to everyone, but I want to target a specific group. I want to target young adults between the ages of 20 and 35 for particular reasons. I want to target women. There's a group that I want to target. So you can do that. But in your application, you do have to talk about that group that you're going to target, why it is you want to target that group, and what are the services you're going to use to target that group. Within the application, which we'll talk about later, also you have to talk about your outreach strategies. How are you going to outreach to all of the residents who have to be served in this program? So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Anisi.
Yep, actually.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm turning it over to our partner.
Yay. Yay. So hi, I'm Jen, everybody, and I'm so thrilled to be here with Anisi and Ron. They've been great federal partners, and I want to thank these guys, but also the whole HUD team who's out there. And even some folks back at DOL who've been working on this partnership for a long time. And this law really gave us the opportunity to bring this partnership back, as Ron said, and concentrate on evidence-based practices that we know work, which is very important for the federal government, who has limited resources to make competitive awards. So could not be happier to be here. As Ron said, the jobs component of the model is the one we're very excited about. And particularly, we're excited about the partnership between PHAs and the workforce investment boards and the American Job Centers, or one-stops. And so we actually have new legislation called the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, which refers back to one-stop. So the names may be different in different localities all across the country. It might be a workforce center, it might be a work source, it might be a work plus. Please know the One Stop Career Center is the place where you're going to receive a pretty standardized set of employment and training services, really providing universal access to the community to make sure that, as Ron said, people have access to trained professionals who can help them write resumes, do job searches, they can provide occupational skills training, they can do assessments, a whole gamut of services available. The great news is that many of you already have these partnerships with your local one-stop or your workforce investment board, so we're super excited about that. And many of you actually participated in a webinar that we did probably 3 or 4 months ago now. But it was really based on a partnership toolkit that we've been working on from the ground up. And this toolkit is referenced on page 5 of the NOFA. So if you need inspiration or ideas about models that we know work, there's a couple of great ones there that we would encourage all of you to check out. But a little bit more about a one-stop. If you don't already have this partnership, that's okay. You can access your local one-stop by going to our website, which is careeronestop.org, And once you get to that website, you can do a zip code search to find your local board and/or one-stop, and that'll get you to the right person. It'll give you the hours and the actual address of the one-stop. So it's not too late to build that partnership, and I would encourage everybody to start that process, regardless of if you're applying for this NOFA or not. We want to make sure our federal resources are being leveraged in those local communities. What happens when you get to the one-stop? When you get to the one-stop, a lot of good things will happen to you. Typically, you'll sign in, and then you'll be referred to a case manager or to the resource room. In the resource room, there are computers available where you can do your own self-service type searches for jobs, for tools and resources. We have a whole suite of electronic tools that help people find jobs and keep jobs. So just a little bit about sort of why one-stops, why now, is because they do have physical spaces that we can access, that you all can access as you build your partnerships with one another. And I think I'll stop there, and then we'll keep talking as we go forward.
Great. Okay. So the next thing we wanted to talk about is the JPEID, which is the Jobs Plus Earned Income Disregard. So as Ron mentioned in the demo, each site kind of made up their own rent incentive, and it was a little bit different each place. There are actually a couple sites that are currently implementing a Jobs Plus program without any federal funding. Those sites, they're in New York City and in San Antonio. They are using the standard EID model because that's what is available to every PHA. In the authorization language that we got for this program, we were allowed to have waivers done so that we could modify whatever we needed to with our current regulations to allow for a different kind of rent incentive. What we decided to do, though, was to use the standard EID model because it is something that PHAs are familiar with and should be implementing already, although we know it's not exactly even how it's being implemented across the board. But we then also know that the way the EID is currently situated, it's pretty complicated. And we know that that's why there's been a lot of resistance to using EID, even though it is what we think really is actually a pretty positive rent incentive model. So for this program, we've got the JPEID. And the modifications are, first of all, residents who've previously already used up all of their eligibility for EID may become eligible again under the Jobs Plus program. The JPEID is in effect for a continuous period from the time the participant signs up until the time the grant is over. So with regular EID, there's a lot of stopping and starting as residents may gain work, lose work. You have to stop and start the clock a bunch of times. And then under the regular EID, there's also 12 months of 100% disregard, and then there's a time for 50% disregard. And in our model, it's 100% disregard for the entire time. So we're hoping that making the implementation of the JPEID so much simpler will really help both help residents understand how they can possibly benefit, and will help PHAs who access the program to be able to really use it and use it effectively. In your application budget, you're going to be required to estimate how much of the grant funds you will need in order to reimburse yourself, the Housing Authority, for the rental income that's lost during the time of JPEID. Now, normally with the regular EID, you're reimbursed through your operating fund request. I think it's actually, there's a sort of a 2-year lag time. But what will happen under Jobs Plus is that you will actually draw down those funds as a BLI from the LOCS system, like most of our grants are in the LOCS system, and you'll draw that down maybe on a 6-month or an annual basis as you're able to document the change in income and how much rent you would have been getting without the JPEID. We don't have a magic number of what that should be. The NOFA states that it cannot be more than 60% of the grant funds required. And this is really critical. The reason for that is that the funding for this program comes from two sources. One source is specifically Jobs Plus funds, and another source is Ross funds. And folks have asked, do we already have to be a Ross recipient? Do we have to apply for Ross? And the answer is no. We've already taken some money from Ross, added it to the Jobs Plus funds, and that's where we get the $24 million that's available for the Jobs Plus program. But because of that combination, the Jobs Plus funds may be used for rent incentive. The Ross funds may not be used for rent incentive. And we're not asking you in the application process to tell us what you're going to use Jobs Plus funds for, or what you're going to use Ross funds for. We thought about doing that, but in the end, we said we'll do the division after you send in your applications, and we decide who the awardees are going to be. But the critical thing is that of the overall funds, of the $24 million we have, 60% comes from Jobs Plus. So we can physically not authorize any more than that for rent incentives. So that's where the 60% in the NOFA comes from. Please, please, please do not take that to mean that you should or that we want you to set aside 60% of your funds for the rent incentive. That is absolutely not the case. Several folks have asked how much should we, and for that information, I refer folks to the MDRC research, which we'll talk about in a little bit, and also just to your own calculations if you have other rent incentives that you've worked with in the past. So that's really up to you. Let's see. I think that's yes. So that takes care of this slide. So I'll flip back to Ron to talk about the community supports for work.
Yes, and before I talk about that, I want to talk about one thing that I did not mention when I talked about the population to be served. We are expecting that you are serving residents who may not have a job, but you would also be serving residents who do have a job, who are looking at career advancement. That is critically important. So we want you to work with both of those populations. So just let me say that. Community support for work. So community support for work, as I've said, is one of the three legs. And we see it as encompassing 4 elements. And first is resident participation. Many of you have resident councils. You all have residents, obviously. So you need to be working with the resident council to determine how are we going to make sure that our development is Jobs Plus, that people here are excited about work, people here are moving to work. And the only way you can get there is by really involving the resident leadership and by having discussions with those resident leaders. So that's one. The other is an engagement strategy that goes from the resident council leaders to the resident body at large. So what does that look like? How are you involving young people, older people, women, men, etc.? So how are you involving all of the different segments of your development? So you need to be thinking about that as well. Sustainability. Sustainability in our heads is that, okay, the program ends at this date. How is it that your development keeps that focus on work? How do you sustain that community support for work? So the best way to do that is to think about it when you're starting it and then building upon that so that when the grant money is over, this development still is about work. So the last one is community coaches. And in some of the original MDRC proposals and demonstration, they hired actual residents from the developments to be community coaches. So you might think about that as to whether or not that fits into your strategy of making sure that there's a community support for work. Thresholds? Yes, please.
Yeah. So also when you think about the community supports for work, just remember it doesn't have to be through the official resident council. We know that some sites, all sites are supposed to have a resident council, some sites may not. If you don't, that's okay. But you will need to figure out kind of who is your resident leadership and how to work with them. So maybe the actual elected resident council or not. And also in terms of the community coaches, we're looking at something more than, a lot of folks are sort of used to this $200 a month cap for a stipend for community leaders. And that's what we normally hear about when we think about resident council leaders and things like that. These folks are probably actually going to be people that you hire to work on the program. So not just a stipendee kind of position, but an actual member of the team that works with the entire program and is, you know, just is a regular hire. So kind of just to think about that. And again, just really want to emphasize, we don't have a magic formula for this. We've got all the data that you have access to for how the Community Supports for Work was implemented in the demo. We actually hear that this is one of the more challenging pieces because we're not really yet sure what happens 5 years later, as Ron mentioned. You know, MDRC did a little bit of a couple years follow-up, but we don't, you know, 15 years later, we can't go back and say, okay, here was the best site, and this is what they did, and look, they've got 98% employment. It didn't happen. So we've gotten lots of questions about what are we supposed to say for this, and the answer is really, we're looking for you to be creative and thoughtful about this aspect of the program, because we don't have a magic solution.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. So I just want to talk about the thresholds. And there's basically 4 thresholds. One is the eligibility, and we talked about the eligibility, the 250 units, 50% unemployment, right? So that is 1. You have to meet that threshold. 2 is you must absolutely have an MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, between the Housing Authority and the WIB, American Job Center, One Stop, whatever they're called, right? And you know who they are because you've been working with them. Most of you have been working with them in your community for years. But you must have that Memorandum of Understanding. 3, you have to have a match, in-kind or cash match of 25% of the requested amount that you're requesting. So you need that match, 25%. And then lastly, as Anisi spoke about, no more than 60% of the requested grant funds can be for the earned income disregard. And I want to emphasize what Anisi said. We are in no way saying that you have to spend 60% on earned income disregard. We're simply saying that you cannot spend more than that, okay? And again, it's because of the way the funding has come. So now I want to turn it back to Jen to talk about an MOU and how important it is and what that might look like.
Thanks, and I can hear the audience, the collectively groaning. I'm like, y'all get all the fun stuff. You're talking about geometry and circles and formulas and you know, and again, thank you for adding money to this pot too. I mean, this is incredibly awesome for our field too. So thank you for that. But I get to talk about MOUs, which all joking aside, they're really incredibly important. It's really the written word, it memorializes the agreement, the roles and responsibility that each party is going to take when they're establishing this partnership. And so really being specific about what it is each partner is going to provide is helpful. And I think it really gets to sustainability. So, you know, after the funding is gone, memorializing those roles and responsibilities going forward, I think it's critical. And so I would just say that as painful as MOUs can be, it's a very critical piece of the application. And so we look forward to that. I would also just emphasize the innovative piece. And so, you know, don't let typical services limit your thinking. And so we know from our partnership toolkit that people have done cool and amazing things. Also, and I know I keep referring to the toolkit from the ground up, but in the toolkit, there's a sample MOU. So for those who are looking for a real life example, again, page 5 of the NOFA has a link to this particular toolkit, as well as the partnership webinar where people actually discuss sort of their work together. So, MOUs.
Right. All right. Thank you. We're going to move to talk about partnerships, but one thing on the MOU I do want to stress is you might already have an existing MOU with someone, but you must have an MOU that references Jobs Plus. Right, so you can take that MOU and update it and say, you know, for the purposes of Jobs Plus, the following pertains, right? But we want to see a reference to Jobs Plus in that MOU, okay? Partnership, I don't think that you can do a program like this without having partners, right? And obviously the Workforce Investment Board is going to be one of those key partners, but you're going to need the Board of Education as a partner, right? You're going to need maybe different counseling services as a partner. You're going to need childcare as a partner. You're going to need a ton of partners to make this program work. I can't tell you how many and which partners those are, but you know, if you've been working in this area, that partnerships are critically important. So you're going to have to go out and get those partners. Regarding grant funds can be used to procure partners, but we expect that those partners exist in your community, and we encourage you to go out and get those partnerships. They're already there. They already get funded in many instances for educational services, job training services, et cetera. So those services are already there. You have to have a 25% match. This could be where your 25% match comes from. So again, partnerships are critically important. I want to go into capacity. And we could have had you talk about capacity. But capacity. So there are a number of factors here. And first of all, it can be no more than 15 pages. But under capacity, we're looking at the team makeup. Who's part of the team that's going to be implementing this grant? So the makeup, the roles, responsibilities. Past performance with similar programs. So we're talking about, this is an employment training program. So what kind of experience do you have in this area? What kind of experience do you have with working with partners? What are the goals? What are the outcomes? And very important, what is the managerial, technical, and administrative capability to implement programs such as this? So be careful and look at that. Next, it's a capacity to manage a multi-year, multiple funding source program and a collaboration. This program is going to be funded. This program that you're applying for is a $3 million program, right? You have to have the skills and the capacity to manage $3 million program. So we're looking for that. We would be hesitant to give money to a housing agency that is only funded a $10,000 a year program, and now we're asking you to do a $3 million program. So be careful of that, look at that, and convince us that your agency, even if you've only done $10,000, convince us that you have the capacity to administer a large program like this. And that includes creating, maintaining goals, commitment to outcomes, a governance structure. All of these pieces are part of having that capacity overall, but a capacity in particular to manage a multi-year program. Finally, we have Section 3, and Section 3 is important for all of our programs, but it's particularly important if you're talking about an employment program. So one, what are the results that you've achieved over the past 5 years, I'm sorry, about Section 3? So we want to hear that, but also we want to know, going forward, how are you going to connect participants with employment? That's employment someplace, some other place, but it can also be employment using HUD-funded dollars, right? Working with residents, that's also up to 3 points. Experience working with residents as team members, including resident leaders, etc. Rating factor, again, another rating factor is need, up to 5 pages. And here we're talking about the socioeconomic and demographic description of residents residing at the target site, the number of work-able adults, the current rate of employment, and if you are tailoring your program to a specific group, what is the reason for doing that? We want to hear about that, and this is where you should talk about this as one of the factors. Another part of need is, how are you going to mesh and connect this program with other programs that are already existing? For example, you might have a family self-sufficiency program. Is there an overlap between the two? Is there an overlap with Ross? Is there an overlap with some of the programs that Department of Labor might be having or Department of Justice might be having? So what is the link that you're doing with Jobs Plus and other agencies? And finally, a description of the local employment market. So we know that different localities have different areas of focus. Some may be healthcare. The healthcare industry is booming in one city. In another, it's construction. In another, it's something else. So we want you to dig into the employment market for your particular city and talk about what it is, where the jobs are, and of course, how you expect to get there. But we want to see some information about what it is, what the market is that you're going to be going for.
And Ron, can I just put a plug in
yes,
there? So workforce
please.
boards are a great source for labor market information. So I would say start there and stop there, because they're going to have a lot of this right at their fingertips. And they're going to be able to help you make decisions about the demand sectors and occupations within your local workforce area. So I think we're excited about that particular element of the application.
Great.
Yeah, and we haven't mentioned it, but it just brings to mind, we also, you may want to reach out to community colleges, because hopefully community colleges will already be working with that information that the Workforce Board has to tailor some of their programs to the demand industries in your community. So, so again, and it kind of goes back to the whole partnership thing, and just similar to in an FSS program, we actually have $0 for any kind of services, and all of the services come in as partnerships. So in this program, there are some dollars there, but we really do expect that you're going to be accessing and activating the programs that are already happening and services that are already happening in your community. So just be aware of that. So. Soundness of approach. We've got a maximum of 20 pages for this rating factor. The first thing we'll be looking at is outreach and engagement. And kind of thinking about how will residents be recruited, how will you connect with them, how will you retain them? We know sometimes it's, folks come to an initial meeting and then disappear, or maybe they'll even sign up and then disappear. So how are you planning on actually retaining them into the program, and then asking to list some goals for touches and enrollments. And I think what this is getting to is that we all know too, in order to get 250 people enrolled in a program, you may have to go and talk to or have in meetings or do door knocking or whatever it might be. You may have to talk to 750 people in order to get those 250 to actually sign up. And so, I'm sure there are some formulas out there in community organizing about how many people you have to touch in order to get the number of people in the door. Same thing happens in sales. So it's not just a community organizing thing, but sales folks have to have X number of meetings, and they have some formulas about how many meetings have to happen in order to actually get so many people to sign up or buy whatever. So that's kind of what we were going for with that question. The next one is the career and employment training services, so I'm going to turn it back to Jen.
I think with sales, it's a lot is the answer to your formula. But yeah, so this is a big bucket, obviously, 10 points for employment and training services. And so really articulating what different services are going to be offered and by whom, what supportive services will be offered. And so in the workforce world, we really think about supportive services as those things that help people get to a job, get the job, and then keep the job. So things like transportation and childcare and other resources that we know are going to support that individual in employment. And then really helping to understand especially your participants' financial literacy. And so there's been a big push lately on helping individuals understand credit card reports and, to even get a banking account, to how to write checks, basic financial literacy that's super important for all of us. And even, I know I personally always like to say I still struggle. So, financial literacy, you can never do enough of that. Computer and digital literacy, the power of helping, and I know young people nowadays have a lot of digital literacy, but some of those higher level digital literacy things like working in Word and PowerPoint and some of the actual software applications beyond their mobile devices, I think is really important to think about there. having relationships with employers. So again, boards and one-stops frequently have a dual mission. They serve workers and employers. And so frequently they'll have a business service representative on site that is going out into the employer community and trying to sort of figure out, okay, what are the employer's skill needs for this particular job? So they have a Rolodex of employers, they have access to them, and a great understanding of their industry and those particular occupations and what skills are actually needed to get that job. So super excited about that particular piece. And then the last piece is just making sure that we make sure that people are getting employed, right? And so make sure they're getting employed and they're keeping those jobs. Again, I want to give another plug for the Workforce Center. I know that PHAs are also amazing and do lots of great stuff, but the workforce boards and one-stops also have a lot of sophisticated performance and tracking systems. So they might be a go-to player for this particular aspect of the application as well.
And they may have a lot of information too about what's reasonable to expect. Again, with that sort of touches and signups. You know, if you haven't done employment programs at the PHA, this is a great way to use your partners at the Workforce Center to understand, you know, what is it going to take to actually help someone get employed and then remain employed. And also would really encourage you to think about creative partnerships. So first of all, if you have an FSS program or a Ross program, or if you've done Hope 6 or Choice Neighborhoods, each one of those programs requires a program coordinating committee or something similar where you're already bringing together a bunch of service providers in your community. Please use those PCCs to start doing this kind of thinking about who you need as your partners. And also remember the business community as well. Just like Jen was talking about with employers, you know, I've heard in FSS, some folks have gotten really creative, brought employers on board, sold them on the exciting FSS program and all the wraparound services, and employers have set aside jobs, you know, for these folks because they know that they're going to come with skills and they're going to be supported so that, you know, we all know that folks lose jobs because their cars break down and they can't get to work. And so if they've got those support systems around, I mean, employers want people who can be consistent. And so we're bringing something to the table with a program like Jobs Plus to say, hey, employer, work with us, you know, because we can really work with our residents and your future employees. So, and then also, again, with FSS, I've heard really creative things about, so, you know, a relationship with the local tire shop. Who, again, gets excited about the impact of the kind of program that they're running and says, okay, if you've got a person who's got a job and their tire goes flat and they can't afford to replace it, we'll give a discount, or maybe we'll give a free tire, or whatever that might be. All of those are partners. All of those can count for match if you've got those letters. So just something to think about, you know, kind of even getting a little more outside of the box and really creative about who in your community might be available to work with you. And perhaps that would have an impact on the whole sustainability and community supports for work as well. Did you want to add something else?
Oh, I just was going to say, I think the staffing component of this is the most critical. And so understanding where you don't, you know, doing that gap analysis right out of the gate to understand where you do have a business service rep, because I think employers are a great example where we know they don't want to be contacted by multiple government representatives selling their wares. And so if you do have a business service representative in your local one-stop, using that person as your key coordinator across employers so that you're not sort of overwhelming and fatiguing employers. So I think that's a really great point.
Partnership.
Partnership,
awesome.
yes.
Yay.
Here we are.
Okay, so the next thing is the JPEID, and this is asking questions about how you will implement the rent incentive. One of the things that we've heard has been a challenge is helping the people who actually do the rent calculations to understand what EID is, why it's important. It's a lot of work under the standard EID to you know, to kind of do all those research. So if you're relying on your current staff who does rent recalculation, you know, why is this important? Why should they put in the extra work. Then also, how will you explain this to residents? Because we know that people don't buy into what they can't understand. So how do you plan to encourage that kind of the participation? And then tracking, which is that big question, because you're going to need to be able to track the what would have happened without question in order to draw down the grant funds for this particular aspect of the program. And then to give some projections on the number of residents and then the number of dollars that you'll be looking at. So back to Ron.
Back to Ron. Community support for work again. This is the third time I've talked about this. But Jobs Plus is not just a jobs program, right? That's where the plus comes in, right? So the jobs part is the employment and the jobs and outreach and workforce investment boards, yes. But the second part, the rent incentive, crucially important, and that's part of the plus. The third part of the plus is the community support for work. You can mobilize, we believe, and MDRC showed that you can mobilize residents to help you in this regard. So that's what we want to see. We want to find out how you're going to mobilize residents in this particular development to help you achieve work in that development. And again, as Anisi pointed out, we don't really know what that looks like. I think that you have to be innovative about that. You have to think about that. You have to say, okay, well, what if we did this? What if we got this famous rapper who used to live in this development to come back and do weekly parties? I don't know, right? But there are things that you can do that I don't know what they are. So you have to, one, tell us what your vision is for that community support for work. Tell us where you're going to and how it is you're going to make all these different pieces work to get that community support for work. We want to know if you're going to hire residents, if you're going to train residents, how many of community coaches are you going to, and what their role is going to be, right? So it's not just enough to say, okay, we're going to hire 3 community coaches. Well, what are they going to do? And what are they going to do that is going to help you fill out this piece, this community support for work? So that's important. And then how will it lead to a sustainable program? And again, I've said this before, but to us it's very important that at the end of the program should not end. This development, and here's my dream. My dream is that 5 years after the program ends, someone moves into that development and the resident leader says to them, you know what? We work in this development. This development is all about work, right? That is something. But you only get there if you have community buy-in from the beginning all throughout the program. So that's a critical element of community support for work. And again, the last piece is we want to see some outcomes and some goals. So you've got your community, your vision, but we also want to see some very concrete goals and outcomes. Great? Great.
So we've got about half an hour left, so I'm going to run through the next ones kind of quickly because I think a lot of it is self-explanatory. But the NOFA requires a program schedule. And so on the program schedule, you're going to want to put the activities, the time frames, the deliverables, your key partners, you know, kind of your whole program. And there's no particular format that we're requiring. So whatever works for you to kind of lay that out in kind of a more picture as opposed to narrative form. And then we also want to see in this program schedule that your startup is going to take no more than 6 months. So it can be faster. That would be awesome. But we just want to see that you're actually, you know, in business no more than 6 months after the grants are made. And I should mention, I think the NOFA says also that we are hoping to make awards in the spring. So as you're looking at this program schedule, if you kind of think about the spring as the, you know, your jumping off point. And in the program schedule, you can do it month 1, month 2, or if you decide to start with April and we don't make the grants until May, it's okay. We'll have time to, you know, to adjust those things, but just to give you kind of a general idea of what to think about. So then there's also the budget, and there's 3 parts to the budget. One is a detailed budget, and that's in whatever format works for you. Then there is the summary budget, and there's a provided form, and we'll look at that in a second. And then there's the budget narrative, and that's the narrative version of what the numbers show us. And these are, pretty standard things that you probably have done before. And so I'll just skip on. So what you've got in front of you is a picture of the form. The form is in the instructions download zip file from grants.gov. It's an Excel form. It is an open Excel form, so you should input your numbers onto here. There are calculations within the form that will add things up in the total column. It'll total both across and down as you add your figures. Remember that the maximum grant funds available, the maximum grant funds is $3 million, but you're going to have all of the partners bringing in your match and leverage funds, so that should be reflected on this form as well. Your total uses and total sources should match up. So again, that should not be a surprise. There's a purple box on there that will calculate the total match divided, the total match or leverage divided by the total grant funds. And we'll do that calculation for you in that little purple box at the bottom. However, as a part of the review of the grant applications, we will be looking at every single match and leverage letter and determining if those letters meet the qualifications that were laid out in the NOFA, which I'll talk about. And so just because you've got the number in the purple box does not mean that that's automatically what the points you will get in the end. So we will be kind of reevaluating that, but that's just kind of for your baseline. If every single one of your letters checks out, which of course you hope it will, and we hope it will, then that will be your number. So that's why we added it to this form. And then also there's a couple gray columns on the right of the chart. That's going to be for HUD use only. We put them on there just so you could kind of see visually, and then we will eventually use that. That's where we'll do the dividing up between the Jobs Plus funds and the ROS funds, and even break it down by budget line item. So if you actually get an award, the award will tell you, here's what, based on your application, here's what your budget looks like. And we'll have time to mess with that after the awards actually happen, but that's for HUD use to divide up between the 2 grant programs. We thought it wasn't particularly important for you to have to do all that calculation. So the next thing is match and leverage. So by statute, there's a 25% match required. This actually comes out of the ROS funds. So those of you who have a ROS program already, you're familiar with how the letters must look in order to qualify for the match and the leverage. It's actually quite similar to also Choice Neighborhoods, Hope 6, other programs like that. We tried to kind of standardize that language. So 25% is the minimum to be required, to be eligible. It's a threshold. So if you're under 25%, after we look through all of the letters, then the application will no longer be considered. Over 25%, starting actually at 1.25, or sorry, at 0.75, so 75%, will start to earn you points for leverage in rating factor 4. And the chart that you have in front of you is what the ratio needs to be in order to get 1, 2, 3, or 4 points. And so we will determine that after we review all of your letters. So again, as we've said, HUD expects that all the services will generally be available, that are generally available to residents of the community will be leveraged in kind. And we do ask that for your match and leverage, you don't need to delineate which is match and which is leverage, but please give us a cover sheet. And we will use this cover sheet to help just for us to kind of picture all of what you're bringing in sort of a 1 page, or it can go into 2 pages, whatever it might be, but in a consolidated form. And it will also help us to make sure that we receive all of the letters that you think you sent us. And unfortunately, we cannot request them, but if you've got that cover sheet, if we don't see a letter, we can look real hard to make sure that we have that, and we'll sort of be aware that you intended something to be there that wasn't. This little grid that you see on the slide is in the NOFA. We didn't provide you a form, but we're just asking that you create a grid similar to this and use that as the cover sheet. All right, I'm not going to go through every single one of these things, but this is what's required of match or leverage letters. It is very specific. And we have seen in all the programs I just mentioned, letters get thrown out because they did not meet all of these requirements. One of the very most important things that we see is that letters come in and they just have a number. And the number just says, you know, I'm the local financial literacy program, and I pledge to work with the Jobs Plus program. Great, you check that box. And I promise to pledge $2,000 over the course of the grant. We cannot accept that if that's all that it says. What it needs to say is, my services cost $200 for a financial literacy class. We pledge to serve 10 people every year, so that's $2,000 a year, and we pledge to serve 10 people every year for 4 years, so that's $8,000. There's some sample language in the NOFA, but we need to see that calculation. Otherwise, we cannot accept the letter. And one of the reasons for that is that we need to see it's for eligible activities as well. But so please really do read all of the requirements. The letters have to be dated between the time that the NOFA was published and the time that it is due. They have to reference Jobs Plus. They also cannot be conditional, and this is really important. It can say, if the Housing Authority gets the Jobs Plus program, I will do X, Y, and Z. That's fine. What it cannot say is, if I get funding from this agency, or if I receive this foundation grant program, I will dedicate a certain percent to Jobs Plus. So the source of the funds cannot be conditional. And unfortunately, we do get some letters like that, and we do know that some folks cannot predict where if they will or will not have certain funding sources. But unfortunately, that's not considered firmly committed, and so we cannot accept that. So do think about that as you're putting together your program. Let's see. So okay, you can include all of the things that are on this slide. We've gotten some questions about TANF. So I just wanted to mention, as the NOFA says, TANF cash benefits for individuals cannot be accepted. However, if your TANF agency is providing childcare or job training or something like that, those can be accepted. Other than the language that's in the NOFA, our legal department has advised us to say that HUD does not express a legal opinion on the eligible uses of other federal agencies' program funding. Each applicant is responsible to ensure with their partners that the committed funding is eligible for the committed use. So please do talk to your partners, especially if they are other federal partners, and make sure that whatever they are committing to, they are allowed to commit, basically.
So if I could just add a particular point, it's on this slide, but if someone's going to be working with a private industry, and the private industry says, I'm going to provide 10 jobs, you cannot count the wages of those jobs.
Yes.
Right, so that's very important, because we've seen letters like that with Hope 6 and Choice Neighborhoods. You can't count the wages that someone may get in the future. You can count the job training that leads to that, but you can't count the wages. Right,
thank you. Good point. So finally, there are bonus points at HUD in general. We have an initiative to offer bonus points to preferred sustainability status cities and areas and to promise zones. We basically just send you back to the general section, to the language for the requirements for either one of those two things. If that applies to you, you'll probably know it. There is a specific form or a specific letter that needs to be sent in if you want those bonus points. If there's no letter or form in your application, we're not going to be hunting it down, so that's completely up to you to have that in your application. Finally, we've just really quickly, you've got your standard SF424, which is electronic. Your application won't submit electronically without it. The HUD 2880, unfortunately in the NOFA, it says, in the program section, it says, if applicable. In the general section, it says it's required. It is required of everyone. It's also an electronic form. Also, your application won't submit without it. Please do fill out the whole thing. There are lots of instructions in the NOFA about how to fill it out. We'd really like to not have to request that as a deficiency. Just know that there are 3 sections, and if you answer the question such that you have to move on to the 3rd section of the form, fill out the 3rd section of the form, even if the answers are not applicable. So, but there's information in the NOFA about that. The SFLLL, which is the lobbying form, if it's not applicable, don't send it in. And then we've gotten some questions, those of you who've applied for lots of HUD grants or who did read the general section, thank you, have asked about the 2991, the certification of consistency with the consolidated plan. And we worked with our general counsel for this particular program to say that if you are awarded, the PHA plan will need to reflect that you have the Jobs Plus program in the next time you modify your PHA plan, and the PHA plans are certified to be consistent with the consolidated plan. So you do not need to send in the 2991 form. Okay, then there are going to be reporting requirements and program evaluation. We are working with our Policy Development and Research Office on what those will look like. We have not set all of those parameters yet, but we will most likely be requesting a quarterly report of some basic statistics and an annual report of something sort of more verbose. And then also the PD&R is going to be doing an actual evaluation. And so it will be required that if you receive a grant that you participate in that evaluation. You know, we won't make it anything that's too onerous, but we will ask you to participate in that evaluation. This is really, really exciting. Most of you know that MDRC was the one that evaluated the initial demonstration program. They have actually consolidated all of their materials, of which there are many actually, on their website, and they have consolidated them to a one page, and I've put the URL here on the slide. It is also on our funds available page. Be sure you click on related content, because that's where you get to sort of all of their different studies and anything that they've published. And then also, completely independently, MDRC has decided to do a webcast for people who might be applying for this grant, so that they can share their operational lessons from the demonstration. So this is not sponsored by HUD. I'll be watching it with great interest, just like all of you will, I'm sure. And that's going to be on Thursday, the 6th, which is 3 days from now, from 1 to 3 Eastern Time. That link to register for that webcast can be found on that MDRC page, or it's also on the HUD Funds Available page as well. And then we will also be posting some frequently asked questions on the Funds Available page as well. 2 that I would particularly like to note just really quickly. Someone has asked, actually a couple of people have asked, what if our site is planned for a RAD conversion? And the answer to that is, because of the way we get our funding, it can only be used to serve residents that reside in ACC units, so conventional public housing. So if you are slated to convert a particular site to PBRA or PBV in the very near future, there may be a chance that we could invoke the same kind of waiver authority that we were able to get for FSS and Ross to let you continue to use those funds until they expire. However, that has not been explored, and we do not know if that will happen. So I would generally say it's probably best to not target a site that is planned for a RAD conversion. And then that also goes to the same question about, what if I have a mixed income development, and can I serve everybody in the development? And unfortunately, it's kind of the same thing that we say for Ross, which is that in order to officially be enrolled in the Jobs Plus program, you must be a resident living in an ACC unit. So if there is something ancillary to the program, say for instance, a job fair and you're bringing it on site, you don't have to sort of check somebody's public housing card at the door. But in terms of really having having case management, having grant funds pay for training, all of those kind of things, plus whoever you're going to be actually tracking in the grant, they need to be residents of ACC units. And we know that that can be kind of difficult, but because the grant funding came through the capital fund, that's the way the cookie crumbles, unfortunately. So I don't know if there are any questions. We have about 15 minutes left if we've got any questions that have come in. So we will wait to see if our fabulous folks in the, back in the studio. Okay, we've got our first question. It will be difficult to predict how much should be budgeted for the JPEID. Will the funds awarded be fungible between that and salaries, et cetera? So the answer to this question is yes. We are, first of all, the budget that you propose is something that we can look at once awards are made and really figure out, does this still seem like this is going to work? And then also, I think especially because this program is new, it's the first time we're doing it, we will be working with you to figure out how to use the funds the best way possible as we move forward through the grant. So if you predict too high or too low and we need to look at reassigning BLIs in future years, we can definitely do that. Let's see. All right. So here's a question. If all $3 million will not be needed, is it okay to ask for less? Yes. Yes, absolutely. Only ask us for how much you think you need. If we ask for all $3 million but utilize only $2.5 million, will HUD look poorly upon that? So that's an interesting question. Yeah. I can't necessarily predict how future future programs will look at older programs, but I do think we have a past performance metric.
Yes. But I would hope that we would not, right? I would really hope that we would not. And perhaps, I mean, the key piece for us, I think, would be, well, there's two pieces here. One is, do we know that in enough time so that we can get the money back and reprogram it, right? So that's one thing. And I think that if you determine and we determine that, you know what, you're only going to use 2.5 early enough in the process, I think it would be okay. If you wait till, you got 2 months left in the program and, oh, by the way, we got $500,000 left over, we won't be happy about that. So hopefully that answers generally what the...
Yeah, and I would also add too, I guess, and we haven't really said enough about this, but we really, actually, both HUD and DOL intend to be very collaborative with the grantees in setting, figuring out how to implement the program, what are best practices as we're moving through, tracking how funds are being expended. So hopefully we wouldn't, like Ron said, get to the end and all of a sudden say, oops, we've got this money left over. So, if it looked like there was going to be money left over, hopefully we'd be able to kind of know that in advance and maybe reprogram it. Not to recapture it, but to reprogram it within the parameters of your program so that you could use it. All right, next question.
So we have no more questions. But before we close, I do want to once again say we're excited to work with Department of Labor on this. Right. We've actually been working in the past on talking about different programs and how we should collaborate. But here's one program we're actually collaborating. Department of Labor really helped us with the NOFA. They're going to help us as the program runs its course. They're going to be there for us and for you. And Jen referenced our toolkit. So right now in our toolkit, we have, I believe we have 4 or 5 programs that are highlighted.
We do.
We think that at the end of our Jobs Plus program, we're going to have 4 plus you 8. Right. We're going to have the programs that you're going to do are going to be so spectacular that we're going to share those examples with other people about how Department of Labor, the local one-stop career center, and a housing authority work together to get residents into jobs. So we're excited about this opportunity, and we hope that you're excited as well on the ground. We know that in some places, relations between housing authorities and one-stops aren't as great as they can be, I think that this program will really help to bring the two together. So I just want to say that.
I also wanted to mention, too, Jen mentioned financial capability, and I wanted to give a shout out to our staff that recently published a notice on financial capability and on partnering around financial literacy. So, and that was done in conjunction with HUD and the CFPB, Consumer Finance Protection Board. And there will be a webcast on that NOFA and those partnerships that's coming up.
Yes.
Do we know when? It's this week. It's Thursday, I believe.
I believe it is Thursday.
Yeah, so you can spend all day Thursday on webcast. It's earlier in the day. Or just check out the archive. So you might want to check that out. We also, a couple years ago, published a notice on collaboration and partnership. And there are some other sample MOUs, and that's collaboration and partnership across a wide range of services. But again, if you sort of need some ideas or want other MOU samples, please feel free to look at that. And all of those notices are on HUD clips under PIH. They're all PIH notices, so you could find them there. So if we don't have any more questions.
No, we want to make your dream come true. I mean, it's a shared dream, let me say. So we're absolutely delighted, and it's just been our pleasure to participate today, but coming up to today and then going forward and providing technical assistance and other resources that we think would be really helpful to the field. So thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Thanks for watching. And if you have further questions, jobsplus@hud.gov, and we will respond.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh.